The value today is that everybody's on it. So it's a single kind of like trust currency across the industry, but it kind of evolved over time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Mad Talks Hospitality. Today's guest is Jordan Hollander. I know Jordan for about a decade now, and he's the co-founder of Hotel Tech Report, the company behind Hotel Tech Awards, where they rank technology using verified customer reviews, partner input integrations, and many other criterias. Jordan has spent years watching how hotels buy software, how vendors position themselves, and how much trust sits behind the ratings and the rankings. So I'm really excited to have Jordan here. Muse just won Best PMS in the world on their platform. And it's one of those awards that I care very deeply about because it's genuinely given to us because of the ratings that customers give us. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Matt. It's great to be here.
In the pre-conversation, we briefly talked about, when we met, and we met about 9.5 years ago. Can you talk to me about Jordan back then, and what was the problem you were looking to solve at that point? What was the problem you saw in the industry?
Adam and I had started a company called City Key. My business school friends affectionately called it Shitty Key, and it's appropriate because it was basically a shitty version of Oki. Think of Oki, but only selling off-property experiences. So we were working on this product, and we were kind of going door to door in the area. We sent out emails to all the GMs in the River North area around our office, and we weren't getting the response we want. But what we started to hear from these guys is they're like, we're getting like 200 emails a month from vendors. Half of them tell us that they're the number one company in their space. And the other ones tell us that they're so unique, there's nobody like them. And so we ended up kind of going down that path and trying to make it easier for hoteliers to make those decisions collectively. We're humans. We need a way to create an anchor to position a product and to compare products. And so that's essentially what we're helping hoteliers do. And then once they make a decision and they have actual data behind what is the best product or is the best solution set for what I'm looking for. There's never one specific product that you need to try. And as a fiduciary, you should always try multiple. But once you have that decision set, you can send around the data to your team. And instead of sending a sales deck, you say, hey, don't take my word for it. Don't just say, oh, I like Muse because like the sales guy was really cool.
Yeah.
But like, I like Muse. Don't take my word for it. Check out what other hotels like us are saying on Hotel Tech Report in an authenticated environment. And now they can basically distribute that decision-making power, especially because there's so many cross-functional business decisions and purchase decisions happening in hotels. So this could become a group decision. So now that GM who was like, I only have downside in this is like, we could do this as a team, but you don't have to become a Muse expert to be part of this buying decision.
And when we started Muse, it was god awful for those first few years. Like, honestly, I'm so thankful to those customers that trusted us in the beginning. I'm assuming you had the same experience. Like, when you launched something, it didn't work, or like, what was that first year like? How did you build the platform? How did you get traffic into it? And like, was it god awful like Muse was?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. It was like a WordPress template that we customized with like a third-party agency and a $10,000 like credit card bill, which was actually like that's how you know how shitty it is that we built the product with 10 grand. We didn't have ways for buyers and sellers to connect, like, and we were a marketplace. But the reason that we didn't put that on the site was actually strategic because we had no traffic, and so we didn't want Muse to know that there was nobody here. So when we started the business, like when you're starting a two-sided marketplace, the thing that you always have to do is think of it as a single player game. So you have to add value for one side of the marketplace independent of the other side arriving. Now that isn't going to last forever. It's kind of like the fake it till you make it. You're actually trying to add value. And so the thing that we did is we were like, okay, well, these like tier two, tier three companies can never get any exposure against the incumbents. And the incumbents obviously don't want to participate in something like this early on because it's so experimental, that we could get the really cool new companies to come on and they could be like, hey, like, look, you can see what my customers are saying and you can see what my competitors' customers are saying and you make a decision for yourself. So it gave them a sense of credibility. And then it kind of just snowballed over time to everybody participating. But for those early years, the value to the single player games, one side of the marketplace, was helping those companies who had very limited marketing budget, that had really good products and not the same awareness, get more exposure, and then kind of level up. And eventually, the point in the marketplace is to have ubiquity. Like the value today is that everybody's on it. So it's a single kind of like trust currency across the industry. But it kind of evolved over time. So it was a piece of shit product early on. And we thank you for your patience with us.
We immediately got excited about it because we're like, yeah, this is missing. Like Capterra, it just like no one was on there. There was no reviews for our industry, and we're like, this hospitality needs a platform because you're not going to trust me because I'm selling my own product. So that doesn't work. So we need a platform for the industry. And I'm really glad that you've become kind of the standard now for reviews. I get so many emails like, oh, for $2,000, you can now win a prize. And I'm like, I don't want those awards, but the award we fight for, like internally at Muse, we fight for, best PMS from Hotel Tech Awards because it means a lot because it comes from real customers. How do you differentiate, I guess, your platform long term? Like, how do you retain the core platform in the long haul?
Yeah, totally. I mean, from an awards perspective or from a core business perspective.
Well, there's probably many competitors to you, but
Yeah.
for some reason, the stuff you've done is the right thing you've done. But how do you make sure that you keep that lead position when there's competition going after you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've had so many like surprisingly Hotel Tech Report copycats. Um, I would say like part of it is like just being in a small TAM niche. We don't have as competitive of a market as Muse has. And so our competitors end up being less sophisticated, which kind of has helped us over the years to make a lot of mistakes and be okay and get through it. We've had, Hotel Tech Report for Germany, for Dubai, for Italy, for Spain, like all throughout the years. And they keep positioning as Hotel Tech Report for a region for some reason. We've had competition, obviously, with Gartner Digital Markets, which is kind of like software advice Capterra. And then there's G2 that's come on the scene. So for us, it's just getting really granular on the hotel industry and continuously evolving. But I think, to your point, the HT score is something that has made us really competitive, and we continue to evolve it similar to the way that like Google has its algorithm. I'm not going to sit here and claim to you that it's anywhere as advanced as Google's algorithm,
Sure it
but
is.
we're looking at things like, and we'll talk about this more later. We're looking at like integration quality. We're looking at what peers, like experts, are saying in the industry. Like we're looking at, the number of reviews that you have, which countries, what hotel sizes are you working with. So we're looking at all this data that a generic review site wouldn't. And the other thing that's really cool about being vertical specific, because I would say our most serious competitors, like credible competitors, are those like mainstream review sites. The really cool thing that we have is that in across pretty much every review ecosystem, there's a huge amount of fraud. And this is a lot of it is because you can't authenticate. Think about it.
Yeah.
If it's Yelp, for example, or TripAdvisor, and you go and leave a review today of a restaurant down the street that you never were at, how the hell is Yelp supposed to know that? Number one, their volumes are crazy. Number two, you're doing it with your personal email. So what we've done from day one is we've said you have to leave it with your professional email. So when you leave a review with your professional email, you then have to click a verification link in that email so that it gets published to the site. So we now know it's at Student Hotel Amsterdam, and they clicked that link. So it wasn't a Muse sales rep that filled this in. It was the hotelier who then got an email who clicked that email. So we have really rigorous authentication standards around our reviews. We have a lot of vendors complain to us, especially as they're getting started, like this is impossible to get reviews because they've used other like review sites, and like this is just not a way to like treat it. We don't want to be
I
part of
remember
Hotel
my
Tech.
reviews. Yeah.
And we're like, well, Muse has like 1,000, 1,500 reviews, and these guys have reviews. Like it's doable. Like it's our responsibility to really put up those guardrails, or else the wheels come off the wagon. So I think authentication and industry specialty, not just the content itself, but the actual nature of when you ask for a review, you have that verification, has led to like a sustained competitive advantage for us.
Like, it's really hard to get reviews. Like, I remember we do these NPS scores where once every so often you get a question like, how likely are you to recommend Muse as a platform to friends or family? And like, at some point someone wrote like, I don't go around recommending PMSs to my friends or my family. I thought it was such a valid comment. Like, to get a review from a customer, like, how do I get a customer to spend 5 minutes to write a review? It's really, really hard. But for us,
Yeah.
we know that this is important, and it is important for hotels to get reviews for as well. And it's a professional effort to do that. You have thousands of reviews on different platforms. Um, what do you think is the driving factor behind the winning platforms? Like what makes them stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think I won't use names, but in the early days, we had a customer who had found another company, sold it to a bigger hotel tech company, and the company that he sold, he was like, "Oh, well, this is so much better than this one that's ranked ahead of it. Like, clearly, this ranking system doesn't work." And lo and behold, that other incumbent, or sorry, the other challenger kind of came in and ate their lunch. But I think the question around like how do you like authenticate and how do you find the best companies, it's about that. I mean, it's the X factor. It's like it's what Muse has is that relationship between buyer and seller. So there's a level of trust and like getting people excited the same way that you guys get your team excited about working at Muse. It's like you want your customers to be excited about working with Muse, like they're a
Yeah.
stakeholder. And so the companies that are able to do really well from a review perspective are the ones with that energy, that momentum, that has this excited ecosystem around them. And that's really what we're trying to validate. We're not like, oh, here's like the 15 features of Muse and here's the 15 features of this one. And it's like, no, we're trying to figure out in real time and create a pulse of which companies are moving in the right direction. And we our belief is that customers are the primary way to tell because I mean, we see it all the time when companies get like acquired by a conglomerate or something. You see this huge period where it's like they're doing fine, and then the reviews drop off, and it's like, well, we didn't, and then they'll tell us like 8, 9 months later, well, we were changing a lot internally, and our customer success team left, and our product team was turning
Yeah.
over, and we're like, well, yeah, that's why that's why we want to have a real time like pulse of what's going on in the business via customer feedback because you could see that pretty quickly as someone gets acquired or and it's not the right fit or they're figuring themselves out. Sometimes there's a change period. So yeah, again, it's like in terms of what makes a company successful, it's deep relationships with their customers,
Yeah.
but that gets harder and harder the bigger you get. I'm sure. Like I don't need to tell you this,
It is.
but it's like yeah, it's really easy when it's like Richard and Matt like grabbing
I'll
beers
write
after
you an
work.
email saying, "Can you please leave me a review?" But like, yeah, I can't do 1,000 of those emails anymore.
Exactly, exactly. And so as you get bigger, it's harder and harder to maintain those relationships, that trust, that enthusiasm with your customers and your employees. And so you get to this point where, the startups are complaining to us, it's not fair. Like they have so many more customers to get reviews from. And then the really huge enterprise are like, it's not fair. We have too much bureaucracy. We have no relationship with our customers. And there's kind of that balance in the middle of like, how do you retain a relationship with a customer at scale, get them really excited about the innovation you're building the right integrations for them, having the right uptime, the right support, and providing all those resources in a way that they're excited to leave a review for you. Like I know it's like leaving a software review is never really like an adrenaline rush or a dopamine hit. Maybe that's something we need to work on is like how to make that happen. But yeah, they're like, you know what, these guys are so effing awesome for my business. Like, yes, I'm happy to leave them a review and
Yeah.
help their business.
This year we won, I think, number one POS for restaurants as well in the POS category, and that's a product we acquired, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and we really invested into it because it wasn't in the ranking a couple of years ago. But we believe that if we're truly a product company and we do acquisitions, we're not going to run that like a private equity where you have all these kind of systems. Like they all have to become new systems and they all have to be best of breed. And it's really exciting to see some of those acquired products kind of get into the top threes now, or even winning in the POS category, because we have such pride in just really putting out really, really good tech. So that was my highlight out of this year, to be honest.
For sure. And you guys, your acquisition strategy has been so cool. I love how you guys kind of started with the bolt-ons of these regional players. And it's like, it's not easy to integrate those, but it's like everyone's been talking about there's 700 BMSs in the world. Like, how could there, like, would you have like a CRM just for Croatia? Like, no, like you have like global software companies that can invest in innovation. And so, how do you kind of solve that problem? And then how do you start layering on more features and functionality and products that can add more and more value over time for your customers in a smart way, but without closing your ecosystem. I think it's really cool what you guys been doing.
So, because I'd love to talk about some of the legacy software vendors out there. So, I looked at the winners this year, or even in the top 5 categories, and there's most of them were like leading like new companies that have like come up in the last decade. The laggards, like the really big companies, the kind of more legacy companies that have our industry still a chokehold, they weren't really there. So, if customers love these new platforms, but they're still buying the old ones, what does that say about hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the just human behavior. Like it's really hard to switch like inertia when you, especially when you have a system that's, I mean, the LTV I think in PMS is like 6.7 years on average. Probably longer for Muse, shorter for some of the
It's
incumbents.
longer for us, yeah.
But it's really hard to switch any software like that you've used for a long time as a single user. Now when you blow that up to like 50, 100 users on a system, and you're like, okay, well, not only am I switching software, so now it used to be a huge barrier, like, oh my god, how am I going to get my data from system A to system B? Now you have RPA that can make this much easier. The switchover of the systems is faster, but you still have the people switch. So you need to have really good like solutions consultants that will go in and help the hotel kind of handhold at a certain scale. Obviously, some hotel deals are not going to warrant that, but it's like there's just this momentum and inertia that comes with using software, especially like multi-user software, that it's really hard. And this is why investors love this space, because it's really hard to have people switch. So we are seeing it happen quite a bit. There's a few incumbents that have I like to take some credit for, like Hotel Tech Report, of like turning things around of like how people perceive these incumbents, and then just like, oh wow, like there's a place for them to like voice that, like the Better Business Bureau effect, like we better fix this. And we've always said like our goal is to, we never want to bring negativity to the industry. We want to always be positive. We want to help the best companies shout from a rooftop about how awesome they are, and we want to help the less better shitty companies figure out what's wrong and fix it, and then shout on the rooftop. So
Have you seen examples of that where people weren't ranked very high, but then they got the feedback and they started improving and climbing up?
for sure, 100%. Yeah,
Great. That's so
yeah.
good.
I mean, we saw. I mean, I'm not going to name names. But we saw companies that were known for, integrations is a huge problem and it's so costly and they're not open. It's like completely changed the strategy around that. And obviously there's some technical developments that happened along the way that allowed for that change. But we've seen companies that kind of like go in that direction and tighten
Yeah.
things up for their existing customers, which is cool too.
How is AI changing the way that people, go into your website and explore, and like how is AI changing your business model?
Yeah, totally. I mean, LLMs are certainly how so many people kind of buy in everyday life. I think there's been a lot of challenges still with LLMs that have, we thought things were going to move faster towards LLMs than they have. But there's been so many critical errors. I'll give like a stupid example from yesterday. We're looking for some silly like light fixture in our house, and I was asking ChatGPT about it. I was like, we really like the look of this one, but it won't fit our space. And then it spits out like 5 like pictures that look nothing like the one that I input. I'm like, okay, well, now I'm gonna go back to like just browsing Google and like look, or like Wayfair or whatever. And so I think the same thing has happened with software, and software is such a more important purchase. Is like you search like ChatGPT, how many times, like when you're making a software decision, first of all, these aren't happening every day like consumer decisions are. So you're not gonna be like, oh, like I looked for like a recipe for a grocery list and it wasn't good yesterday, but let me try again today. It's like for software, like you're in this kind of like buying mode for a fixed period of time, and then you kind of go out of it for a while. You go dormant. So the people who have tried buying in the last 2, 3 years on ChatGPT, they got pretty shitty answers for the most part. Now, I think there's going to be this kind of, this period where AI eventually kind of like fixes itself, and you have kind of this epiphany moment where everything works. But I think kind of going back to why don't people switch to new software when they have bad software? It's like it's inertia, it's human behavior. We're used to buying a certain way. If you 2 years ago tried to search ChatGPT for PMSs and you were looking for features and reviews and all this stuff, and it was serving you bad information, well, in 3 years when you go to do it, you might give it another try, but you might also be like, I'm not really going to go down that approach. So I think it's still used as a discovery tool. It's still a great tool to kind of like stress test, ask questions, but there's still, even when you put in this like Peter Thiel, like be like this horrible critic and like you want to prove me wrong about everything that I'm saying, like I don't know it verbatim, but I have it in my GPT. It still validates you. It still provides you bad information. And so we haven't seen it move as much as we thought. So there's still a ton of like Googling happening and trying to get source information. But one of the things that we want to do is start ingesting source information. So like what the first thing that we did with AI was, I mean, obviously as a review site, we summarize reviews, we come up with semantic keywords. A lot of the stuff, the kind of features and functions you see on TripAdvisor, Amazon, these are like really easy ways to incorporate it into the buying process. Because like, who's going to read like 1,500 news reviews, and like scroll through the pagination? It's like a pain in the ass. So we're trying to surface that as much as possible. But yeah, we'll likely roll out an LLM kind of chatbot. It's something that we've kicked the tires on, but commercialization is really hard. Of like, how do you monetize that? Do you just
You
like
know,
stick like an old school like banner ad on the side of it, like while people are chatting? So do you stick links in it, but then are the links going to be like, biased based on the ads?
so you want to talk and chat with a bot that you trust, and
Yeah.
if it starts like selling you shit, then you're like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if this is, yeah,
100%. And so we haven't built it yet, but that's something that we would definitely consider. Yeah, so LLMs are something that I think from an exposure perspective are really important for everyone, to be thinking about as sellers and because buyers are using them, but I don't
yeah.
think they're quite at the level of getting the information that we need. And I think it's just a matter of getting the right content in there, training the LLMs on the right data. They have no feedback response at all basically. It's like, okay, so they served you like bad PMS recommendations or whatever, just average, and then you went and did a bunch of research on Google, they have no idea that that was like a bad recommendation. So I
Yeah.
think it's just going to take time for them to get the information correct, and then it's going to take time for buyers to kind of trust them in a way that they don't. I don't think today.
If you look at the winning categories this year, were there any major surprises?
There's always a few surprises. I would say there's a company called Mara Solutions out of Germany in the
Yeah, love it.
reputation management
Really good.
category. I think reputation management in general is about to have a resurgence, just because it kind of like went through this phase where it was like, Revenate and Trust You and Review Pro, and it was like they got this huge scale with this, and then they kind of all dropped their prices, so it was like near free to use reputation management software. It's adding much of value because you're getting
Yeah.
exposure on these third party platforms, and then it kind of got commoditized, and all those companies kind of like shifted their focus onto other stuff. But I think with the advent of LLMs, it's like now review data is really critical. Like if you can get that information in house and you could provide actionable recommendations to your team based on specific feedback that you're getting in real time, I think, and then you could use that for CDP segmentation and email campaigns, and you could use it to say, okay, well, like our room quality is going down in the eyes of consumers and we're getting bad reviews. So maybe we should have a slightly less aggressive rate strategy so that their expectation of the room is lower until we do that renovation in 2 years. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff happening there.
And what I love about Mara is that they actually built a two-way integration, because these used to be one-way integration. So these review platforms would want to know from the PMS who are the guests that stay with us yesterday, so that I can target them for reviews. But when the guest actually clicks on the link in their email and leaves a review, we get the review data back from Ara. So it's stored in the PMS, because the PMS is now the system of action where we use LLMs to basically summarize, like, in a short tooltip to the receptionist saying, hey, this customer wasn't happy last time, be careful. And it's really valuable for those review sites to feed back into Muse, and not all of them do it. But when you start to see it, the LLMs get really good inside the PMS system.
Totally, totally. So I think that's having a resurgence. We saw Inflow win in the accounting software category for the first time, which is really cool. I mean, they raised a bunch of money. All the VCs are looking for their next Muse. They're all looking for the next accounting software after an incumbent there. And so Inflow's kind of like really taken the industry by storm with like a little more modern UI than the incumbents. Obviously, hotels have really specific kind of accounting needs,
Yeah.
reporting needs, taxation needs, as you guys know. And so I think that's been a really interesting one. The other one that I'd never heard of before, that like, because we're not in, we used to we moderated, Adam and I moderated reviews for the first, I think, like 5 or 6 years of the business, a little too long, but we don't see all the data coming in and all that stuff today. We have a team that does that. But Okra parking management, so it's like a parking management solution that's getting more legs with hotels. And obviously, I know Muse and some of these PMSs have integrated kind of spaces, and you could kind of create your own modular offering, which could include parking. But that's been a cool. That was a cool one to see too.
Any AI native companies that you've seen come up?
No, I've been really surprised by it. I mean, when you look at that, I think Richard actually sent me an article about this, but it's like vertical market software. Like the thing you need is that feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you want to create a CRM, it's easy. Just like connect into like the team's email inbox and like create this this chat interface instead of a UI wrapper. In terms of like logging deals and taking notes and everything. When it comes to like vertical market software, like this data is inside Muse, so it's like you can't just come and build something off of Muse data. And so all the innovation has been happening from the companies that are big enough to have the data at scale, but not
Yeah.
too big to be bureaucratic and built on legacy tech stacks. And so I've been really surprised. I thought there were going to be more. We were kind of looking at investing in some, and it's just like nobody really had the right kind of not product market fit because we were investing really early, but like nobody was really moving in the right direction that we needed to see. At least yet. I hope that evolves over time. I also think I think of like these like vertical market software like funding cycles as like vintages. And it was like it's like this is the age of like Muse and Canary and Lighthouse and like these and Duetto and like these companies are like coming to scale that kind of all started at the same around the same time. And I think that as you guys like exit in the next few years, basically all these companies will have to have some sort of financial outcome. But as the founders walk away, typically something slips and the customer closeness kind of ends up slipping in some of these cases. And I think that might end up opening room for innovation from the outside. Not that you guys are like gatekeeping, it's just you guys are too good. And I think it's really hard. Like, how are you going to come in and like recreate what Canary's doing when they've got, this stronghold on, the chains and they've got a really great product and a really great vision and leadership. It's like they have to slip up somewhere to like make room for someone else to come in and kind of build that. And so I think, the vintage of funded companies right now is really exciting, is getting to levels that Muse's recent valuation, like VCs 10 years ago would have said, nope, you're never going to do that in
Well, when
hotel.
we met in San Francisco many years ago, we were out there trying to find funding. And it was hard because some of these investors like, yeah, you're not horizontal, meaning you can't go across many industries. You're just in the travel vertical. And we're like, but it's huge. And they're like, yeah, it's not interesting to us. And we were booted out many investor rooms because we were in
Yeah.
a vertical. And that narrative has completely shifted with AI now because horizontal can be displaced very easily through AI native platforms. But vertical is really hard because it's hard coded like workflows that we are trying to fix and build. And like we're in a very different position fundraising today than we were a couple of years ago because we were just like, always competing with horizontal software. And it's a nice place to be right now.
Yeah, now nobody wants to touch horizontal because of the AI
Yeah.
disruption. They only want vertical and they love the LTVs. And so it's
Yeah.
crazy how that's flipped.
What are your predictions for this year? Anything exciting that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think predictions wise, we're probably going to be looking at a lot, more innovation coming from, I would say semi incumbents. Like I don't look at you guys really as an incumbent still. Like these companies that are sitting on data, that have the engineering teams and the product vision to like go take a little more risk and move a little quicker. In terms of predictions, I think like integrations has been this problem that the industry has talked about for like a decade, but it's like with AI, I think the cost of integrations is eventually going to go to zero. If you're on the Mara engineering team, like with with an LLM, you could say when someone checks out in Muse within 45 minutes, or send them a checkout survey. And so I think integrations cost is going to go down. I still don't know what that means for point solution versus platform. But I think some of this stuff, I don't think it's going to like manifest fully in 2026. But there's like an argument to be made that's like, okay, so the cost of development goes down and the cost of integrations goes down. So it'll be easier to build and atomize in the future. But then there's an argument to be made that's like, okay, you couldn't be Muse 10 years ago and effectively compete on revenue management system and operations software and POS. But it's like, with the cost of development going down, you can now manage those product roadmaps in a much more efficient way. So a platform has an advantage in the sense that this platform approach that you couldn't do before is now much more feasible. So I don't know like where that plays out. I'm sure it'll be some blend where there'll be some exciting new kind of like micro SaaS point solutions that kind of take hold. I mean, Canary
Yeah.
started as what, like digital authorization at the front desk. Like I remember when Harmon like told me about the idea, I didn't get it. I was like, but isn't this just something you do at the PMS, or like, like I didn't really fully understand it, but I think there will be some kind of like Trojan horse product like that that will solve a need that's AI native, get huge scale, and then probably like branch out. It depends. I don't know whether they're going to be in operations or whether they're going to be in guest experience or marketing. But I think some of those solutions will start to surface themselves eventually. I'm honestly not bullish that it's going to happen in 2026. I think it's still a little bit early.
And any category that you think will be in trouble?
I mean, like to that point, like I do think that if you're not adding unique value, like if there's nothing that you can do differently and you plug into a PMS, like there's a real risk because again, like for Muse with a ton of resources, with a great product vision, like you now have the capability to basically cover more breadth than you could before. And so I think point solutions really need to think about like if I'm a guest messaging platform, like what is the thing that I'm going to provide that's unique and different to the market. And some of that might be go to market, some of it might be pricing, but some of it might be innovation. But I think we're all at risk. I mean, I'm sure you've heard. I think
Yeah,
it's Satya Nadella from Microsoft saying software is going away. It's like, yeah, I don't want to bet against that guy, but like what like there's gonna be no software anymore. Like I can't really picture what that world looks like. But so I don't think I think we're at risk with LMs. I think everybody's kind of we're in this interesting time where we're like competing against each other in a sense. I mean, not like Muse and Hotel Tech, but we're competing against other software companies or marketplaces or channels for eyeballs for us. But we're also competing against like just innovation and like the wave of time. Like I really don't know who's safe in this environment. It went from finance to the hotel tech to the horizontal tech. Like it's really I mean actually who is the safest is hotels. Like because people still want to stay in hotels and they still want to still want to dine at restaurants. So it's like I think to be a hotel owner, it's a really interesting time because you're getting like more efficient from a technical perspective, like a technological perspective. You're shifting your labor cost into technology costs, and you're getting better at demand generation. And you're having a lot of demand come in from people who are like really tired of seeing like AI generated memes and they want like a human experience and they want to be
yeah.
with their family and unplug, or like you're going to Thailand in a few hours. Like they want to have that kind of unplugged experience. And I think the hotel industry is really well positioned for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the most exciting times for hotels because we finally get to automate all the boring stuff that no one wants to do. No human wants to do the stuff that we make them do. But like now use the humans to really go back to hospitality. I was talking yesterday to someone and he said, "Why did you start in hotels?" And I said, "I remember when I was 4, the first hotel experience I had, it was just a small family hotel. And I walked in and it was just like I was like, what is this wonderful place? And it was so warm and there was a chocolate on the pillow every night. And I was like, that was such a small thing. And I think now with LLMs, we can go like really surprise and delight customers. But you need the hoteliers that embrace that creativity and allow their teams to get really creative. But I think it's one of the most magical times that's coming, hopefully, for hospitality.
Totally. I mean, it's a really cool time, and I think to my point about Muse as a platform having capabilities to go further. I think hotels are the same. It's like you used to have like and you still obviously do, but revenue manager, or market director of marketing and sales and marketing. I don't know why those are together because they're completely not the same function at all or skill set. Like mice manager, etc. And it's like the GM can kind of turn it. And by the way, like all these roles are mostly underpaid for what they're doing. A lot
Yeah.
of them are unhappily in an office in a basement somewhere, in certain hotel groups that are like subscale, don't have a corporate office. And so I think we're going to move from, and we have this labor problem because people are like, I don't really want to do that anymore. And so I think we're at a time with technology where it's like the GM can kind of turn into a product manager and they could be managing revenue management and marketing and sales if they're really good. Obviously, you're
Yeah.
still going to have those resources that you're going to need. Maybe it's more outsourcing. That the GM's kind of managing an outsource role versus in-house, but I think you're going to have less jobs, but they're going to be better jobs. They're going to be more exciting, more upward mobility, more pay. I still remember when we were selling our last product, like the GM of the Hard Rock in Chicago was telling me his salary, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, dude! Like you're running like a $60 million business, and you're getting paid as if it's like a $500,000 business. It's crazy." But there's that's just the market based economics of that role. But I think they're going to get more favorable over time and bring in more
I hope
talent into
so.
this industry.
Like, if we wanna get that talent in that's gonna innovate, you gotta pay above market, and
Yeah,
some hoteliers are getting to that realization where, we're just all complaining about the lack of talent. We don't have a problem as a tech company, but yes,
yeah,
we pay high salaries, but because of that, we get better talent in who are 10xing the
yeah.
output of the company, and I think hotel world needs to realize that maybe above market is painful initially, but the people you can attract for it will transform your business long term. And once they get on that like the kind of like new direction and they understand this, it's exciting.
Yeah,
Hospitality.
totally.
Jordan, thank you for everything you're doing for the industry. Like I love watching you guys thrive, and just the engagement on the platform is so positive. And the way you spoke here, like, I'm not calling out names, and we want to focus on the positive. It's very much how I kind of stand in life. I think we should celebrate great achievements of companies, and you have built one of those companies, and I'm really happy that you've done this for the industry, because we really needed a platform to come out and just make sure that we create this transparency about which are the good platforms, and read the customer reviews. So a massive thank you for everything you're doing for the industry. Thank you for sharing all your insights. And I'm hoping that we'll have you back on next year when we win another time the best PMS in the world.
For sure. Thanks for having me on, Matt. Yeah, like it's never a review system is never perfect. It's always like you're going directionally, like to create an effect. And for us, like one more thing before we hop off is just we started the first thing we built was an NPS tool. Like we joked about NPS earlier, but the first thing we built is an NPS tool. We're like, what if we could get every company in the industry to like publish their NPS? That was like our North Star.
Yep.
Nobody touched it for obvious reasons. I know you guys wouldn't want that either. Like nobody wants their like public information out before it's internal. But that's kind of where we're going. And it's never going to be like a perfect system, but we're constantly evolving and iterating. And it's a community approach. Like guys like you or Richard come to us and say, hey, like this is like really wonky of like how this ranking works in this variable. We always think about It's All Tech Report as a utility for the community, and we want everyone to have a say in it, like kind of like a DAO. Like obviously those aren't really in fashion anymore, but like we just want to be the arbiters of that DAO. Like we don't want to be like picking winners and like analyzing features. So thank you for having me on and letting us tell the story. But it's still very much an open book, and we're excited to have people like you as part of telling the future of that story.
Nice. Thank you.